Welcome to the costume studio. Today is part 6, how to make a Planet of the Apes mask. And we are making a cement mold. Let's get this out of the way. And wear a glove, wear a glove. The We are making this with Ultra Cal 30. And this is basically a gypsum cement, and this is awesome stuff. So I've got a bag of this. I usually pick up a 10-pound bag for $40 off of Amazon. I think I can make, depending on the size of the mold, I can get usually 2 molds out of this, and these molds last a long time. I end up making this. This came straight out of a mold. That's a gorilla face. It hasn't been painted yet. But, I can usually get anywhere between 20, sometimes 30, sometimes 40 latex masks out of a mold before it starts kind of losing all its detail. But what we need to do is we'll start out with I use a small bucket of water. This isn't all that big, and if I need to, I'll work in batches. If I have to go back and mix some more, I'll do that. But I'd rather mix less than more, because if I have too much, then I kind of waste the material. So this is already filled up to about there. This is about 1/3 of the way filled up with water. I have a chip paintbrush. These are cheap. I picked these up again off of Amazon. I get a box of a dozen for maybe $5 or $6, and these are great for kind of painting on plaster and stuff like that. So what we'll do, let's take this, and how to mix this. A lot of the instructions will say mix 1 part water to 3 parts of plaster or whatever you're using, but I don't really use measurements, and I tend to go a little bit thicker on this. So what I'll do is I'll start just taking this, and I just start kind of dropping that, pouring that into the bucket, and I keep doing this, right? And what I'll do is I'll keep adding this until that starts to resemble kind of a muddy, what would you say, they call it cracked earth, I guess. It almost looks like a muddy riverbed. So once that starts, as you pour this in, and I'll try to turn this and show you as I do this, but as I start adding this stuff in here, what happens is, if you see that hasn't quite soaked in yet, right there. It's still right there. So I'm adding this, and I keep adding, and I keep adding, and I keep adding. And I think that might almost be enough. I'm going to move that around a little bit. Move that around. No, we'll put a little bit more in there. Put a bit more. And I'll add some more, and I'll add some more, and that looks like it should just be enough as I move that around there. Yes, that's kind of awesome. And in the middle of that looks like kind of mud on a riverbank right there. So let's move this out of the way, and what I usually do is I'll mix this by hand. That way I'm not creating too many bubbles in here if I use a stick or a spoon or like that sometimes. So I can take my time with this, and I am just mixing this. And you want this to be the consistency of pancake batter. You don't want it to be too thin. You don't want it to be like milk or soup. And if I need to, if I find that this is too thin, I'll just go back to the bag, and I'll I'll put a bit more in there, but this is actually looking pretty good as we're going. If you look at that, see, that's almost like a pancake batter. And I want to be careful. I'm mixing this very gently so that I want to have as few bubbles as I can in here, so I'm not mixing really fast. And I'm going to keep mixing this, and I will cut and come back as soon as this is mixed. So I'm going to take a few minutes to mix this. So this is where we need to be at with the mixing, and what I've been doing is I've slowly been going through here and kind of feeling my way around the mixture for any large lumps. And again, I've been going slow, so I'm trying to not create bubbles here. And look at that. See how thick that is? That's perfect. So let's get rid of this. Dun, 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 dun. Don't get that on anything. I got it on stuff. And so let's take that, move that off to the side. We are going to bring this back in here, and then this part goes pretty quick. What I'll start doing is I'll start taking this brush, and I want to start brushing this mixture onto the surface. This is what we call a beauty coat. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing this into the nostrils, and for this first coat I'm brushing this on, but I'm actually pushing this in. I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to lose any of the details that I've sculpted into the face, but I want to make sure that this actually gets into all of the little crevices and the wrinkles and all of the details. Now it's going to be spotty. There's going to be some bare spots, but that's why I'm just going to keep kind of coming back through here and coming back over this. So here we go. And this is that first coat. And what I'll do is I'll probably, as I'm doing this, see how I'm doing that? There's a lot of detail in those eyebrows. There's some, I don't know what we call micro details, wrinkles and pores and all kinds of stuff like that. But if I need to, I'll take the tip of that brush as this is setting up and drying, and I will just kind of dab that on there. And I'm looking, and I'm kind of coming around the outside, and I'll come down here, come down this way, and now I'm continuing to just push. There we go. There we go. Back into the nostrils. I want to make sure that those get in there. Let's come down, and while I'm doing this, I'm going to either cut back in here, because this is just basically at this point painting, but I will either cut back in or speed up the video. So you can see at this point that it's starting to get much thicker, and that is because it is setting up as I work with this stuff. And eventually, now that I've got this sort of this base coat down, and that is starting to set up, I'll eventually start pouring as I go. I'll have to put gloves back on, because I'll eventually end up working with my hands. But look at that. The eyeballs are getting filled in. The mold is getting thick. See that? Now I'm just kind of dropping it on top of there and letting it sort of run down the rest of the mask. Yeah, look at that, man. There we go. Pour and go, pour and go, pour and go. So I have gloved up because I might start working with my hands here soon. I'm going to actually just start pouring this on here, right? And then bringing that around, and then we'll let that set up a bit right there. So I've been working for about 20-25 minutes now, and you can see as I'm getting into this, the ultracal is really starting to set up. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to get the last of this poured out here, on top of here. See how thick that is? Excuse me. And what happens at this point is we can start moving this stuff around and smooth. So there's been some runoff on the sides, and I'll kind of bring that up, and I'll bring this down here, and I can start kind of smoothing this out a little bit with my hands, just to kind of make it a little bit more even. Bringing that around there, bringing that up, just like that, and I'm kind of taking down as many sharp edges as I can. I don't really need to worry about this so much on this layer, because we are going to mix up another batch while this dries, and we're going to make this even thicker. We'll probably add another. Some people will use burlap or strips of fabric at this point, and they'll dip them in the into the cement, and then they will what that does is that reinforces kind of the mold, and they can make really thin molds that way, and I in the long run it'll save on material. I don't really use that step. I just make an extra thick mold. I learned this from I believe it was Stilt Beast Studios, when I was kind of watching tutorials myself on how to do this stuff, and he tends to make a thicker mold, and I went that route, and I like working that way. It's fast, and I don't have to worry about cutting fabric and dipping fabric. Dipping fabric is kind of, for me, it's extra mess, and it gets all over the place, and I can kind of keep this mess contained to this and my hands and that bucket. So I'm going to go mix up another batch of Ultra Cal 30 while this sets up. I've mixed a new batch, and I've mixed the batch quite a bit thicker than the original batch. Instead of pancake, it's more like a thick, almost like peanut butter, and the reason is, for this layer we're going to trowel this around to build this up instead of brushing it on. I don't even use a real trowel. I use pieces of cardboard cut up. And we may have to do one more batch after this. I'll know once I get how thick this goes on. But what we want to start doing here is I'll start kind of pouring this on and around here, right? Pouring this on. Oh, look at that. That is awful. That is just awesome. Awesomely thick. Awesomely thick. Awesomely. All right. And I'm just kind of letting this run. It's so thick, I'm sort of just letting it run down the sides. And what I want to do is I want to build this up at the bottom. You want to have a thick layer along the edge here where you break your mold free. So looking at this now, I may end up having to do another batch here. And I did neglect to mention that in between mixing the Ultra Cal, I wash and clean the bucket, and I wash and clean the paintbrush as well. So see this? Right, let's do this. Let's just kind of bring this around here. Probably use half of that right now. And I am just kind of troweling this down. Oh, look at that. The best thing is to just not see any facial features in the mask, and you know you're doing all right. So I'm sort of just kind of bringing this around here, and as I'm doing this, yes, most definitely I think that this is going to be a 3-batch mold, possibly 4, because I am working with smaller buckets. But see how I'm just kind of bringing that around there, bringing it around, starting to look like a dome. That's right. Ooh, this is making me happy when it starts looking like this. And I will cut the video, and we will be back. That is just about, that's pretty cool. That's pretty close right there. And because I mixed this so thick, this is setting up really quickly. I can actually feel it setting up as I'm moving this around, but that is looking awesome. Let's come back and see how many passes this is going to take to make this mold complete. So this has taken one more batch and one more pass, and I've kind of poured extra over the top and around the edges, and as this sets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling this up into the side, and this basically reinforces this. It looks like the lower edge, but when this gets flipped over, this is going to be the top edge, and this is what we're prying on. So we want this edge down here to be very, very strong. And it will be after this third pass, and I am just troweling and pulling, troweling and pulling, troweling and pulling, and it's setting as I go. Bring that up on over there. We can bring that, oh, look at that. Look at that. And I'm going to keep doing this until it sets up. Check it out. We have a mold. All right, so now what we need to do is, this is actually, just crack this. I kind of move this around, crack this off of here, crack this off, crack that off of there, crack that off of there. And what we're doing is we are pulling. There we go. Look at that. This actually came off pretty cool. You see that? You see how that works out? Now be careful with the edges of these. They're going to be sharp. And what you want to do later is come back through here and either grind these down or sand them down or Dremel them down. But these edges on here are going to be a bit sharp. So let's do this. Let's turn this up. Oh, look at that, man. So now all we have to do is come in here, and we are going to, I don't even have any tools ready. So we want to get this, our original piece out of here. This is the, you can see the clay that we've cast. And what I'll probably do is come in here a few times, and I will just sort of start working this in through here and kind of pulling some of this clay out of here. You see how I'm doing that? Just kind of working that clay out of there, pulling it out. Be careful not to, if you're sticking something in here, be careful not to hit the mold. This part of the mold, you can hit up against that. But I am just kind of getting this clay out of here. And this is going to take a little while for me to do, so we're going to do a quick cut here while I do this. And I'm working. Oh, no, actually, we don't have to do that. Look, that came out. Oh, that came out nice, man. And well, it looks like some of that mold came off on, or some of the armature came off on this clay. I will get rid of, there's not much clay on here. This clay is trashed. I will throw that clay away. So I am going to kind of come in here, and what you want to do is just clean this out in chunks. And again, when you're moving your hand around this stuff, be careful not to cut yourself, especially if it's your first time working with a mold. And I am just gouging this with my fingers to begin with. This is a long process sometimes, so I will make a quick cut. All right, this is about as much clay as I can clean out by hand, and it's so what's left is just this kind of surface coating here, but everything's cleared out of here. And at this point, I am going to take this outside. I might put I have a couple ways that I clean this out. Sometimes I'll just put some kind of hot, warm water in here that softens up the clay, and then I'll hit it with the hose. But I'll hit it with the jet cycle. I know some people have kind of high pressure clean these things. I don't necessarily like doing that, so I'll just go in batches, and I'll put hot water in, and if I have to, I'll use a very kind of a a light plastic scrub brush. I don't want to use metal on here. I don't want to you know, risk chipping any of the details that are in there. So I'll go and I'll scrub it out. I'll put more water in there, scrub it out, fill it up. Maybe I'll take a you know, a sponge, and I'll take the plastic side of the sponge, the abrasive side of the sponge. I'll just lightly go over this, and it takes a while. I'll just keep doing this until this is super clean inside. In fact, I have a finished mold over here, so I'll show you. So this is before cleaning, and once this gets cleaned, it will end up looking like this, and it's ready to start pouring latex or silicone into that. And I will see you in the next video, and we will be pouring latex. Thanks.